Hello, Sphere One members and suppliers. I want to thank you for taking time to tune into this video to learn about supply chain and all the issues that we're facing here in the United States and throughout the world. We first put this panel together back in February when supply chain really became an issue. And since then, as we all know, things have gotten worse. So our goal with this discussion is to educate you as to what's going on, maybe what the future looks like, and how we can work together as distributors and suppliers to work through all of these issues. So with that, I want to turn it over to our host, Mr. Rod Steyer. Rod?
Let me start by introducing the people who are on the call today with us, and Rich Chapman from Makita, Scott Smith from Prime Source, Kenneth Politi from Southern Carlson, and Jeff Tannenbaum from Tanner Bolt. What we want to do is give an overview of where we are right now as regards materials and also shipping costs, and project where we might be throughout 2022 as regards supply and demand and pricing. So I think we did a good job 6 months ago explaining where we were. It may be a little tougher this time to explain why we're still here, but we are still where we started. So looking at the big picture as regards material costs. Scott and Ken, you both are in industries similar to me, so we understand what's happening with steel, what's happening with shipping. Do you guys want to talk about what's driving the rising prices, and also do we see something that might mitigate that going forward?
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Ken, I'll start. You can fill in anywhere you want. Just taking the steel. Steel in 2019 was about $450 a metric ton. It ran all the way up in a nail steel about $980 a metric ton. Screw wire rod is a little bit higher than that. And the nail wire rod right now is varying between $858 and $900. So it's staying there pretty consistently over the past couple months. I don't see a reason for that to start moving backwards. If it does, it might have a $50 delta variance in that, but it's not going to come back all the way down to $450 we see in any time soon. That being said, anything can happen in the commodities markets. But steel mills are coming offline. They're going to be shutting them down in China for Lunar New Year, the Winter Olympics, and the Paralympics. So that's going to put a strain on supply. Can you see anything different on that right now?
I agree with you, Scott. The pricing, although lately I've seen out of China and a few other countries where the pricing of wire rod has gone down, I think some of the other input costs are, don't reflect that within the cost of goods when one purchases it, be it, FOB the mill or a delivered price. I don't see steel dropping off that much from where it is now. And even if it does, the increases in shipping and the costs related to that are going to keep the prices higher. Returning to what you spoke to, that 450, I don't see that happening anytime soon. And I think that we'll continue to see the costs that we're seeing today because of the other contributing factors besides just the raw material cost itself.
Yeah, then we look forward to 2022, 2023, and we have the infrastructure bill coming up and all the $1.2 trillion that will be feeding the economy. And there's a lot of steel used in infrastructure. So that's going to put further pressure on the steel industries.
An interesting note when you look at the different countries in which the steel is being made and used for nails and other products like screws, rebar, and so forth is that, well, a lot of the countries overseas, you see a little bit of deflation in the cost. The domestic markets continue, the domestic steel producers, their pricing continues to go up. And with that point you just made, Scott, I think that what we're going to see is a perpetuation of costs going up because they can. I think, that's what we're seeing within shipping. That's what we're seeing within trucking. to where costs are going up because they can. And I think that's one of the biggest contributing factors to the situation we're in today.
Yeah, Rod, shifting over to the freight, I was going through a couple of numbers this morning, and contracts in 2019 were about anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000 to get a container from China to the U.S. In 2020, contract was written for about $4,000 to $6,000, and now we're looking at in 2021 the contracts to be between $8,000 and $10,000. Now, a contract is if they accept it, and Ken said if they can, due to the tight capacity. The average that we're paying right now is anywhere $10,000 to $12,000, and we're paying up to $23,000 to $24,000 to get material moved. That's not going to change anytime soon. The steamship lines are talking about 3-year contracts, and if you nullify them, they're going to sue you for your breach of contract. Nobody can sue them, otherwise you can't write a contract. So it's really a bad situation that the industries are in right now. Rich, I see you shaking your head. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing.
Yeah, Rich, my question to you would be, with chip shortages, what they are, do you see any reduction in cost for power tools going forward?
Yeah, thanks, Rod. No, I would tell you on our end, although we have some differences, certainly from what Scott and Ken deal with regularly, more on the commodity side. You might recall our last get together, we talked about the chip and component shortage and then the supply chain issues as well. I would tell you in our business, there is some capability of increasing capacity on the component side and pick up additional supply. And for what I'm seeing for both Makita and our competitors around the world, additional supply has been able to come on board. Now it takes a while, 6 to 12 months, but we have continued to ramp up production on our side, but it's coming at a cost. So there is a lot of cost pressure on the business, although supply is easing up from the component side just a little bit. I'd add to that too, that global demand continues to be strong. So this, again, this isn't just a U.S. or North American issue. This is a global demand issue. You're seeing the same issues in Europe, South America, other places that we operate. And we've got similar demand issues there. The one caveat that I would make to that in our business, Rod, I'm speaking primarily or exclusively about battery powered products, not the same situation with your gas powered products. So the gas folks and manufacturers continue to have a lot of problem sourcing components for gas engines. I think you're going to see a lot of issues on the gas engine side over the next 12 to 18 months going forward.
Yeah, another topic we sort of touched on once before is if you want to buy a stock right now, probably container companies is the stock to own because their profits are outrageous. Any thought that we're going to see a leveling off, a retreat in pricing for containers? Shipping.
Well, like I touched on, Rod, I mean, the new indication for contracts around $8,000 to $10,000. That's if they accept, they'll write the contracts, but if they accept the tonnage at those prices, it's going to be interesting. Right now, Maersk is going to be making in a full year $16.2 billion. It's insane of what these guys are making, and this is over and above the contracts. They've nullified all the contracts. So we're hopeful that the industry will settle down. They'll look at the long term and write contracts at that, new level. That will help a little bit, but they need to take the capacity up. Right now, there's 100 vessels sitting outside Port of Long Beach. That's the all-time high. They're saying they need 20% more capacity just to cover the vessels that are idle right now. So it's going to be a stretch over the next couple of years.
You know, and along with that 100 ships off of Long Beach, you know, they're still consuming fuel, they're still consuming food, they still have to pay their people who are on the boats not getting to shore, and that's an additional cost. Add to that, my understanding is there's going to be demurrage rates coming into California, along with a possible strike by the longshoremen. So that would all impact what we've got on our plates going forward. So it doesn't look really good in the near term, that's for sure. Ken, any thoughts you have on that?
You mentioned the demurrage charges at the Port of Long Beach, LA. You know, if a container sits on the tarmac for 10 days, then they're going to start charging $100 a day. That went into effect earlier this month. And, you know, that is going to be a major problem because, as Scott mentioned, their capacity to unload the containers is short. But with the recent changes of the shifts working 7 days a week instead of just 4 days a week, you know, they're going to unload more containers, but getting the trucks in there and having the infrastructure to handle the influx of those trucks is going to be a bottleneck that is, you know, is going to be the problem we face. And those demurrage charges of $100 a day are going to be a reality for all of us. It's going to be industry-wide. The more time in which it takes to get that container off the boat, out of the port to the customer and then return, all that results in that shortage of equipment, shortage of containers overseas, which is, you know, only going to feed the surcharges in which people are having to pay in order to get that product on the water. You know, Scott mentioned paying an average of $10,000 to $12,000 for a rate, but yet a total charge of $20,000 to $21,000. The difference in there is that surcharge in which you are given notice of, you know, a week prior to departure overseas, and you can pass, but then you don't know when the next one's going to be there. So there isn't many passes on paying that surcharge. And so, you know, Rod, you asked, is there any relief in the near future? There might be a bit of relief following the rush for Christmas out of China, but with all the other matters involved, I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Do you guys see one of the problems we've got now is that the container ships and the containers are in the wrong places. So we've got to get the container ships back over to the exporting countries so we can get it back to the importing countries. Do you see through the Olympics, the Lunar New Year, that there might be some adjustment of the containers where they're located? It might drive pricing down a bit, or is it really just too big a problem to have a week here and a couple weeks there to solve?
I think that I think you will see a little bit of relief during that time period you described, the Olympics and the Lunar New Year, because right now the vessel carriers, they can direct their ships back to whatever port they want. And so they'll direct it to the ports in which they get the highest rates and the largest surcharges. And right now that is China. And so what we see off the port of Long Beach, LA is almost double when you look at the ports in China as far as the ships waiting. And so when everything starts to shut down to some degree in China, those ships will be redirected, but you're not going to see a return to the rates in which we had prior to this fiasco.
Yeah, I agree with Ken. We're trying to get with the carriers to find out how we can break the backlog out of places like Thailand, where carriers are basically just not going to Thailand. And we're seeing is if China starts slowing down during the Olympics, will they redirect the ships to Thailand and others? So we're trying to be proactive and work with them on that, but right now we're not getting that information back.
Okay. Now, the other question that we sort of kicked around in our last group talk was what a great opportunity it would have been for American manufacturers to be able to get greater market share from foreign manufacturers. And yet, especially the part I know is in the nail business, it didn't happen. Why do you think it didn't happen?
The number one issue that we're seeing right now is labor in the US and getting people to go to these jobs. They're not the most attractive jobs to work in a nail mill. That's not the cleanest job in the world. And the wage scale is much lower than you can get at retail outlets today. Restaurants, McDonald's, the hiring bonuses out there. And nail mills, quite frankly, are located in obscure areas. And it's not that easy to just start a nail mill. So that's the difficulty on bringing that capacity back to the US. It might end up all in Mexico versus anything else in the near future.
Yeah, I agree with Scott. I mean, the production in the factories in the United States is significantly down by about 40% or so, and that's the result of labor. It is the result of labor. Some of the signing bonuses and everything that other companies are offering, these manufacturers can't compete with. And as far as where it's going to go as a result, I agree with Scott. I think you're going to start seeing more and more of the product being manufactured in Mexico. But it's going to take time to get there because the machines, the equipment they need to manufacture also has to get on the boat from somewhere. And some of these machines that are used for the products in which we know, right, Rod? You're talking about a 1-year lead time.
Yeah, I'd jump in on that as well. The single biggest issue we're facing right now is labor, without a question. Just trying to get labor. We continue to ramp up production in the U.S. in our factory here, but getting people, I think the county that we're in north of Atlanta's got a 1.7% unemployment rate right now. There's huge demand on the people that are in the marketplace. Everybody's fighting for the same people. You got a lot of larger manufacturers in those same areas typically. So a lot of pressure on the labor side, Rod, I would tell you, and I don't see any improvement there until people get back to work. And I think we discussed it a little bit earlier. I think one of the single biggest issues that we have, and I think Scott's the one that coined the phrase, the Great Resignation. I don't know what fixes that. I guess when we stop paying them to stay home, but right now, that's going to continue to put a lot of pressure on everybody's business, it looks to me.
What I've seen from domestic manufacturers is that their lead times have almost doubled this year. And one of the reasons besides labor is just getting the material, the wire, in order to make the product, especially on stainless steel products. It's been delayed increasingly over the past few months.
Yeah, and I think probably distribution feels the labor issue almost as much as manufacturing does too, because hiring people is a bit of a challenge right now.
Yeah, we're short right now about 20% off of our regular warehouse group, and churning people, just trying to find people, bringing them in and hoping they stay, and or whether or not we want them to stay is a big issue for us.
Jeff, when we talked last time, you had asked a really important question, which is we've sort of covered the meta view of the economics, which is why is this stuff happening? But you had a question which was more, distribution related.
Yeah, basically, I'm listening to all of these dire situations about what's happening in the markets overseas and shipping. And the real question to me is, what do I do as a distributor? and what actions do I take? What actions have I been taking? And how do we look forward? Our inventory has increased dramatically this year. It's probably up 30%, if not more. We've actually taken a second building around the corner from our main warehouse in order just to house some of this additional material. I'm concerned about whether or not I keep buying forward, or am I buying it with rising costs going forward, or do I rely more on my domestic importers and domestic importers primarily? And what stock status will they have? I've seen some relief in stock status at some of the importers. More material has been coming in, but nevertheless, the outlook of pending availability or not having material at suppliers is an everyday occurrence. Sometimes we'll look for a product and our regular supplier won't have it. We go out searching with suppliers we don't even know at this point in order to try and pick up items, local wholesalers that typically we wouldn't deal with instead of dealing direct. I read an article this weekend in the Wall Street Journal, and they said we've gone from just-in-time inventory to just-in-case. And, that's something that we've been playing that game now for quite some time, trying to figure out, do we buy, what's the lead time? What's our safety stock? Do we buy a 1 month supply? Do we buy a 3 month supply? And at what prices should we be buying those products? And also, we're very concerned about, we're not a large importer. We may do 10, 20 containers a year, and we're very concerned about ordering containers now, when they'll come in, at what prices they'll come in, and what will be the end user market prices when those containers come in. So I'm not sure that listening to you guys has helped much, but at this point, but maybe we could address some of those issues that, I myself, and I'm sure many of the other Sphere One members are listening to right now, as far as, how do we move forward to protect our businesses, to protect our pricing, and maintain sufficient inventory to service our customers' needs.
Okay, well, breaking down some of the things that Jeff mentioned, inventory. For everybody, I think manufacturers and distribution, everybody's inventory probably has increased as much as they can. Would I be correct in that assumption?
I think, we can buy more. We're just concerned about, the cash flow implications of buying more. And since we've already taken additional space, we've almost filled that. It's a small building, but we've almost filled that building. So, we're willing to buy more right now, just to meet our next few months' needs, especially also since we've seen price increases. Just one supplier increased prices 5% this Monday, and we've been notified of an additional supplier, one of our main suppliers, increasing prices as of December 1st. So we are trying to beat those price increases as much as we can afford to, and as much as we can provide space to store this material.
Ken, if all of your containers came in, how much more inventory as a percentage would you probably have now than what's usual?
Quite a bit. I mean, what Jeff mentioned about the just-in-case inventory, that was embraced. That was embraced, and and then also the strategy of diversifying our supply chain, bringing on additional suppliers for the same product, and having the duplicate orders, knowing that there would be challenges and delays from one, the increasing the likelihood of a container showing up in a timely fashion. We increase those odds by diversifying our supply chain. If magically all those showed up at one time, it would be significant. I think the chances of that are very low. And then, in regards to trying to help distributors and talk about strategies to protect our business and so forth, I mean, it is all the solutions are very costly. I mean, it does kick into that cash flow scenario that has to be monitored very closely. I think one of the things that we could, do more of is, when that A or, the primary or secondary supplier doesn't have the inventory that you're looking for, is to ask them who does. Ask that primary supplier. If they're a true partner, they're gonna guide you because they want your business to stay strong. And so it's a great opportunity to really see who your partners are. But also leaning on those importers that have domestic inventory. It's a mix of them all, Jeff. That's really the only thing I can say. It's a mixture of them all. Inventory is up, but there are certain key items in which we still struggle to find enough product for. And so we're doing all the above in finding those. A lot of just in case, a lot of just staying very close to those wholesale importers that have products stateside, to make sure that if something comes in and we're in a need, that we have an opportunity to bring that in.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely a critical matter, is keeping in touch with all of your vendors, trying to get a feel for what's coming in and what the timing will be. Also, one of the other issues is just getting that material in sometimes. We've actually had to, make arrangements for trucks to pick up material. Sometimes that would normally be shipped to us just because of the difficulty of dealing with the trucking situation also.
I think, beefing up on inventory, especially when prices are rising, makes a lot of sense, because eventually you'll sell it and you'll make a great margin. The danger being at some point in time, who knows when that's going to be. And I think if we were all predicting, we'd probably say not in 2022. There may be something that there's going to be some sort of retreat in pricing. Whether it's because of shipping costs going down or materials going down, there's a lot of factors that created the shortages, and there'll probably be just as many if we ever get the reductions that I'd expect we would get. But the challenge then becomes for distribution is your pricing strategy with what your inventory is. And that really is a key to staying strong as a distributor, as an importer, is in this business. So in terms of pricing strategy for people's inventory, any suggestions?
Yeah, Rod, I've got one. When you're looking at Jeff or Ken's business or others' business in your group, the leading indicator of where the market is going is the futures that are out there, the container orders. Where they used to be a 90 to 120 day cycle, they're now up to 240 days. So if the members go and every once in a while quote their key items overseas, that will tell you if the price is stable, going up, or going down. Wire rod is a perfect indicator. Wire rod goes down, your futures are going to go down before anything in the warehouse is going to go down. So if you start planning it out and looking in that way, you'll be able to say, hey, I need to move my inventory because the pricing is going down in the future, or the pricing is going up in the future, and you use a portfolio approach of containers and out of warehouse in the US to get your cost average up or down. That's how I would recommend the members look at that.
I guess one question I have for you, Scott, about that is, I don't know how to find that information at this time, not being a large importer or a regular importer, going out and finding out what those futures would look like. And maybe, is it possible that, Prime Source or other vendors such as yourselves, who are larger importers, can relay that information in some way, shape, or form, if you even have it, to help distributors at least, monitor what the risks might be going forward of placing containers, with your company for delivery 8-9 months out?
Yeah, Jeff, that's a good point. We'll put together a leading indicator of the market as we see it for steel, for other commodities, and for transportation. And we'll try to get that out or update that every month going forward for the Sphere One group.
Yeah, that would be great.
I know for our little segment that Ken and I play in, roofing nails, sort of the canary in the coal mine for what pricing is going to look like. And if you chart roofing nail prices, because there's so little margin, that tells you pretty much where steel is going to be going. Can you agree with that?
Normally that is the canary in the coal mine. Yes. Today, I hesitate to utilize it because where the coil nails are coming from is China, and you have to have really clear. You have to have a great deal of clarity in regards to the surcharges and shipping charges in which you're going to be paying for that. But if you're just paying attention to an FOB coil roofing nail price, you also need to take into consideration where rod is that day, because the coil roofing manufacturers, they are living, hand to mouth when it comes to the purchase of the rod and production. And so what was a really good indicator, I'm hesitant to use these days, because if you put on a graph the rod cost of other countries along with China, it's a very convoluted picture. And so so much of the supply base for other products are coming from other places in China. It's not as useful as it used to be. So just making it more complex, Rod.
Okay. Now, there isn't a whole lot of supply. We've seen that the penalties in Europe are going to go down. Is that going to really do much in the United States in terms of our type of business, or most of the suppliers we have outside of the EU?
Yeah, I don't know many suppliers in the EU that are going to drive our business one way or the other. And then on top of that, you have caps on what you can bring in from the EU on the raw materials. But the finished goods are not pertaining to this.
Okay. Any other thoughts that might be able to help Sphere One group, whether distribution or suppliers, in terms of where we are in the marketplace right now, going forward? Does anyone predict that 2022 is going to be a easier supply than 2021 was, or is it going to be more of the same?
The only prediction you can make is you're going to have more of the supply in the U.S. going into the fourth quarter and into the first quarter out of the domestic warehouses. There's a little bit of extra inventory right now, but I think with China shutting down for that month to 2 months, it's going to start pulling it down again. So the next 2 months is when you need to get source of supply out of domestic inventory to ensure that you can get your supplies through the Q1 of 2022.
Okay.
Rod, I might, if you don't mind, just jump in. I think Jeff's question is really the heart of why we're all getting together to discuss these issues. And I think it's a great question. What do I do? As the non-commodity manufacturer here on the panel, I think we talked about it a little bit before, but I would recommend to the members that they stay very close on the tool side, very close to their suppliers. I know for us, for example, we're working very closely with a lot of our customers, not so much with how much would you like to have, but how much do you really need to take care of your customer. That forecasting, that looking down the road a couple of months, knowing when big projects are coming out of the ground, knowing when people are going to need to tool up, I think is really invaluable right now. As an industry, our joint customer, that contractor's not used to planning. He calls you in the afternoon and wants it yesterday, is kind of always been the joke in the industry. But I think everybody needs to work really closely with their contractors to anticipate the needs that are coming, and then communicate that with your tool manufacturer and make them aware of what's coming. I've certainly found that we've been able to shift things around to satisfy people for the most part in our business, and I don't see that changing, to your point, through 22. I think this pre-planning, upping your communication, making sure you understand what you're going to need a couple 30 days or more down the road could really be invaluable to the members.
Yeah, I think that probably is also one of the benefits of Sphere One, is that connection between suppliers and members and the communication that takes place. That we as members have the ability to communicate with the suppliers at a very high level, and therefore we could probably plan better, because you're right, the needs of the contractor is yesterday's need. I mean, I got a request, in fact, yesterday for 2,000 boxes of nails. And it was like, yeah, so where are those coming from? So yeah, that communication is essential. Any other people have some final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I think that even within the commodity market as well, I really encourage the distributors to work closely with your customers, because the bullwhip effect is the greatest threat. Right now demand is high, and as product comes in, we can move it. But one of the things that I'm most concerned about is these exaggerated demands. You have people out there that are educating themselves in regards to the perfect storm in supply chain. They see the difficulties that their distributor partners are having, and so they're going to multiple distributors and giving these giant numbers, and our salespeople, in an effort to acquire more market share, bringing forth these demands that are extremely high. And if we were to order to all those, then when something happens, be it the material cost or the shipping cost goes down, we are going to have a lot of inventory, and it's going to be high priced. So it's a long-term effort to make sure you're in a better position when things do shift the other way, and try to avoid that backlash in regards to unrealistic demands that were given to your salespeople and then communicated on.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody is hedging their risks, but trying to push their risks off to other people. And we have to assess what's real and what's not real in the market and make sure that we plan accordingly.
Well, gentlemen, I think we had a pretty good session today. Hopefully that, the people listening understand that what we're looking at in the near term is unfortunately for the long term too. And, we'll all get through this thing, because that's what you do, you get through it. So thank you very much. And Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rod. And once again, great job leading our panel. And a big thank you to Ken and to Jeff and to Scott and Rich for coming together as a group once again to educate the Sphere One family as to all that's going on with supply chain. Continue to talk to one another, guys. Continue to lean on one another. Continue to lean on us at Sphere One. Share this video with your team, anybody you think that would benefit from watching this content, and we will continue to bring out content as things continue to change. So thanks again, and have a good rest of the day.